The chamber of the Galactic Council was vast, carved from living crystal and alive with 1,000 flickering lights that shimmered across its towering arches. Beneath the high ceiling, the air rippled with sound, voices of hundreds of alien delegates whispering, debating, judging. Each voice spoke in its own strange tone, translated instantly into the shared tongue through the Council's ancient network. Today, every whisper carried the same word: Earth. At the center of the hall, a sphere of light pulsed with slow rhythm, casting silver shadows on the faces of those gathered. The Council of 1,000 Worlds had assembled in full for the first time in centuries. Rumors said a representative of humanity had finally responded to the Council's summons. For decades, Earth had ignored every message, refused every invitation, and declined every attempt at contact. Yet today, the mysterious species had broken their silence. The Council's High Arbiter, a tall being with translucent skin that shimmered like water, raised his staff. The noise faded instantly. "Delegates of the galaxy," his voice boomed through the chamber. "After 60 years of neglect and absence, the human world of Earth has chosen to respond to our authority. Their envoy arrives today." Gasps rippled through the hall. Some murmured disbelief. Others muttered fear. The ancient worlds, those that remembered Earth's early broadcasts and strange experiments, knew the name human carried a weight. Beyond their small blue planet, a blinding beam of white light struck the center of the floor. When it faded, a single human stood there, unarmed, calm, and silent. He was not dressed in armor or ornate robes like other ambassadors, but in a plain gray suit, with a faint silver emblem of Earth's continents over his heart. His name was Ambassador Hale. The High Arbiter leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "Human representative, you stand before the Council of 1,000. You have ignored our calls for decades. Why come now?" Hale looked up at the tiers of alien faces, reptilian eyes, insectoid mandibles, crystalline forms that refracted light like jewels. He stood completely still for a moment, studying them, then spoke in a steady voice. "Because for the first time, you have made a decision that affects the fate of our species without us. That cannot continue." The Arbiter's expression tightened. "Earth has forfeited its right to speak in this hall by refusing its duty to attend." "Perhaps," Hale replied, "but duty is not submission. We have been watching. We have learned." His words, though quiet, carried across the chamber. "You call yourselves the protectors of the galaxy, but your protection extends only to those who obey your rules. We do not obey rules written by others for their convenience." An outcry rose from several alien representatives. One shouted, "This is arrogance! Humanity is a minor race." Another hissed, "They dare lecture the Council?" But Hale didn't flinch. His eyes were sharp, his posture steady. "If we are minor, then why call this meeting? Why summon us? You feel the weight of our silence more than our words." The room fell quiet again. Even the Arbiter hesitated, sensing something beneath Hale's calm, something deliberate. Humanity had come with purpose, not apology. The Arbiter said coldly, "You presume to lecture the Council? You have ignored every invitation to join our diplomatic network, and now you stand here accusing us." Hale nodded slightly. "Yes, because we wanted to see what the galaxy becomes when power is centralized in a chamber instead of earned through courage." He stepped closer to the center light. "For 60 years we stayed silent while you debated wars you never fought, signed treaties you never enforced, and watched species die while you waited for majority votes. We decided that when we came, it would not be as petitioners. It would be as equals." The room erupted again, shouting, hissing, crackling in anger. The Arbiter slammed his staff down, the sound echoing like thunder. "Enough. The Council does not recognize Earth's equality. Your world is unregistered, your fleets unverified, your behavior unacceptable. Humanity stands in violation of interstellar law." Hale's lips curved slightly. "Then you have made your position clear." He reached into his coat pocket and placed a small metallic sphere on the floor. "But so have we." The sphere unfolded with a whisper of light. A holographic projection filled the air above them, a sprawling map of the Milky Way marked with bright points of blue. As the delegates leaned forward, they realized the truth. Each blue point represented a human fleet. The Arbiter's voice trembled for the first time. "What is this?" "Confirmation," Hale said. "For 60 years, while you held meetings, we built. We explored. We colonized. You thought our silence was weakness, but it was preparation." The room erupted in chaos again. Some shouted disbelief. Others fell silent as data appeared. Transmissions, coordinates, planetary logs. Earth had not been idle. Humanity had expanded beyond its sector, establishing colonies in regions the Council deemed unreachable. Impossible, one alien whispered. They had no access to phase-gate technology. We created our own, Hale said calmly. Because we had to. While you debated resource taxes and fleet limits, we learned how to fold space using gravitational resonance. Your laws never applied to us. We don't need your permission. The Arbiter rose from his seat, voice shaking with anger. You defy the Galactic Charter itself. Such independence threatens the balance of order we have maintained for millennia. Hale's gaze hardened. Then perhaps your order was never stable to begin with. Every word hit like a hammer. Delegates whispered in panic. If what the human claimed was true, Earth now possessed technology equal or superior to the Council's core species. And worse, if humans had truly built fleets in the shadows, it meant they had learned to do so without the Council's knowledge. The Arbiter steadied himself. If humanity has indeed created unauthorized fleets, you will surrender their locations for inspection immediately. Hale didn't move. We won't. Then you risk war with the entire Council. War? Hale tilted his head slightly. If the Council wants war, it should at least know the size of the storm it calls upon. He pressed a control on his wrist. The holographic map shifted again, this time revealing a second layer. The blue dots merged, forming colossal patterns stretching across sectors. Fleets, armadas, human-built, human-crewed, each marked with the insignia of Earth's new coalition, the United Earth Command. Impossible, a voice croaked from the balcony. How could one world create such power? Hale turned toward them. Because we're not one world anymore. We're hundreds, and we built in silence because we learned your language long ago, the language of strength, not words. The Arbiter's staff trembled in his hand. You would threaten this Council? Hale's tone softened, though his eyes remained sharp. Not threaten, remind. We are here because you passed judgment on us without our presence. That ends now. Humanity will not be spoken for. Humanity will speak. The hologram vanished, leaving only the sphere of light pulsing at Hale's feet. The silence that followed was unbearable. Even the translation nodes paused, as if the universe itself was listening. Finally, the Arbiter spoke. You think this show of strength will earn respect. It will only invite destruction, perhaps, Hale said, but it will be on our terms. He stepped back into the beam of light. Earth has heard your summons. This time you will hear our answer. The beam flared, swallowing him completely. When it faded, he was gone. For several seconds, no one spoke. Then deep in the chamber, an alarm sounded. Council defense networks detecting massive objects entering the system. The chamber lights flickered as sensor feeds appeared above the delegates' heads. Thousands of signatures. Ships, human ships arriving from the void in perfect formation, black against the stars. The Arbiter stared at the projection, his voice almost a whisper. They came. And across the galaxy, every world felt the echo of that moment. The silence of Earth finally broken, the sound of engines awakening across the stars. The Council chamber was in chaos. The air trembled with shouts from hundreds of alien delegates as alarms flashed red across the ceiling. The holoscreens above them showed the impossible. Thousands of human warships sliding out of hyperspace like silent blades, their black hulls absorbing all light. The ships held perfect formation, unshaken by the defensive grid that surrounded the galactic capital. Not one weapon was armed, yet every being in the room felt the weight of their arrival. The High Arbiter shouted for order, his voice echoing against the crystal walls. Silence. The word rippled through the hall, cutting through the noise. What we are witnessing is a diplomatic intrusion. Earth dares to bring warships to the capital of peace. But deep down, the Council members could not hide their fear. The energy readings were beyond anything they had ever recorded. Humanity's technology, once thought primitive, was now beyond understanding. Then a new light appeared at the center of the hall. A human stepped through, calm and silent as the crowd fell into a low, nervous hum. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and wore a black uniform with a small insignia on his chest, a silver circle surrounding Earth. His name was Admiral Rains, the Supreme Commander of the United Earth Fleet. Rains looked around the chamber, his gaze sweeping across hundreds of species. each with eyes, mandibles, or luminous features fixed on him. The tension was thick. No one expected him to walk in alone. No guards, no weapons, only confidence. The Arbiter's voice was cold. Human, explain this. You bring a fleet of warships into our sovereign system. You break the sacred laws of the Council. Are you declaring war? Rains raised his head slightly. No, Arbiter. Humanity has no intention of waging war. We came because you forced our hand. You declared Earth unfit for Council membership. You passed judgment without us. You ignored us for decades. The Arbiter snapped. You rejected peace. Peace? Rains said quietly. You mistake peace for control. You sit in this shining hall and call yourselves guardians of order, while your laws crush the worlds beneath you. We have seen what your peace costs. The word struck hard. The alien delegates began whispering again, their voices blending into a storm of confusion. The Arbiter pounded his staff against the floor. You dare accuse this council? You know nothing of what we do. Rains took a step forward. We know more than you think. We've watched your treaties. We've seen your decisions destroy colonies that couldn't pay your taxes. Your fleets abandoned species in need because their worlds held no strategic value. We stayed silent because we needed time to grow, to understand the galaxy you built. Now we know enough. The chamber went silent again. The Admiral's voice was calm but heavy, carrying a quiet power. You call us reckless. You call us dangerous. Maybe we are, but at least when we act with purpose. A representative from the insectoid Vath system clattered her mandibles and hissed. Your species is unstable. Your weapons are uncontrolled. You should be restricted. Rains turned his eyes to her. We heard that before from every empire that tried to limit us. They all failed. Before the Arbiter could respond, the chamber lights flickered. A holographic projection appeared above Rains's wrist. It was a live transmission from orbit. Every alien turned toward the glowing image as it expanded across the chamber. It showed the human fleet, row upon row of massive ships, sleek and silent, orbiting in disciplined precision. The feed zoomed out, revealing more than anyone expected. The fleet wasn't alone. It was accompanied by medical vessels, supply carriers, and civilian transports. The sight confused the Council. What is this? The Arbiter demanded. Why bring civilians to a potential war? Rains met his gaze. Because humanity never travels without its people. Wherever we go, we build. We heal, we protect. Our fleets aren't made for conquest, they're built for defense. For deterrence. A crystalline ambassador from the Auric system spoke, his voice sharp like broken glass. You expect us to believe this show of force is for peace? Rains looked around the room, then motioned toward the hologram. Your sensors read the energy output of our ships. You've seen that our power dwarfs anything in this system. If we came for war, you'd already know it. We came because you need to understand something. The Arbiter's tone grew bitter. And what is that? That the galaxy you control is breaking apart, Rains said. While you hold meetings, others die. While you debate, civilizations fall. Humanity has done what you refused to do. We've built alliances without your approval, saved colonies you left to die, cured plagues you ignored. We didn't need your permission. A shocked murmur spread through the Council. The hologram changed again, showing footage of humans aiding alien refugees, repairing orbital cities and defending border worlds against pirates. Each image contradicted the Council's claim that humans were isolationist. The Arbiter stared in disbelief. You act without authority, without the Council's oversight. Authority, Rains said softly, means nothing when people are dying. A long silence filled the chamber. Every delegate watched him with uneasy awe. Humanity had broken every law the Council held sacred, but they had done it for reasons no one could easily condemn. The Arbiter finally said, even if your intentions are pure, your actions are reckless. You risk destabilizing entire systems, Rains replied. Then maybe the systems need to change. Suddenly, the chamber lights dimmed again. An alert rang out through the communication network. A voice from the Council's control tower shouted, incoming transmission from the human fleet. The projection shifted once more. This time it showed a colossal human ship moving forward, a flagship larger than any vessel in the Council's archives. Its hull shimmered with faint blue light as its name appeared in glowing letters, Resolute Dawn. A transmission came through, calm and direct. Council Command, this is the United Earth Fleet. We await confirmation of diplomatic clearance. Our weapons are offline. Our intentions are peaceful. We are prepared to engage in dialogue. Every delegate turned toward Rains. He stood still, his expression unreadable. "We came to talk," he said. "But we came prepared to be heard." The Arbiter clenched his hands. "You cannot intimidate us with displays of power." Rains smiled faintly. "We didn't come to intimidate. We came to remind you that humanity is not your subordinate. We are a voice in this galaxy, whether you welcome it or not." The Arbiter hesitated, then gestured sharply. "You will stand trial for violation of Council law. Your fleets will be scanned and your technology cataloged for security." Rains's expression didn't change. "Try if you can." The alien guards moved forward, surrounding him. Rains didn't resist. Instead, he looked toward the Arbiter and said quietly, "Step outside, Arbiter. Look at the sky. Tell me if you still believe we are just a minor world." The Arbiter frowned but turned toward the chamber's massive window. Outside, the night of space glowed faintly blue. Then the stars began to shift. The human fleet was moving, not attacking, but aligning into geometric patterns. Dozens of massive ships formed perfect concentric circles, their energy cores pulsing like a living heartbeat. The defensive grid of the capital world began to fail, one node after another flickering out, not destroyed but gently disabled. The sensors showed no sign of aggression, just quiet, controlled precision. The Arbiter turned back to Rains, his face pale. "What are you doing?" "Demonstrating control," Rains said. "We could crush your systems if we wanted to, but instead we show restraint. That's something you could learn from us." The silence that followed was complete. Even the guards stopped moving. Rains walked toward the exit as the beam of light surrounded him. Before vanishing, he looked back once more. "You call yourselves a council of 1,000 worlds. Maybe it's time one of them finally spoke truth." He disappeared. The chamber erupted into shouts again, but this time, the noise was filled with fear. Every species had seen what humanity could do, and that they had chosen not to destroy. The greatest power in the galaxy had just arrived not as conquerors but as judges. Above the capital, the human fleet floated silently, waiting. The Galactic Council chamber was silent when the human admiral appeared again. The walls of crystal shimmered faintly, reflecting the tense faces of hundreds of alien delegates. Outside the massive transparent dome above the chamber, Earth's fleet still hung in orbit, 1,000 black warships surrounding the capital world like silent sentinels. Every species represented there understood that the balance of power had shifted. Humanity, once dismissed as an unruly upstart, now stood before them as an equal, or perhaps something far more dangerous. The High Arbiter rose slowly from his throne at the center, his translucent body glowing with restrained anger. "Admiral Rains," he said, his voice heavy with authority. "You stand before the Galactic Council to answer for your people's actions. Explain your presence here and explain your fleet before I order your ships removed by force." Rains stood calm and steady, his expression unreadable. "You can try," he said softly, "but I wouldn't recommend it." The room rippled with nervous whispers. The Arbiter's tone sharpened. "Are you threatening the Council?" "No," Rains replied. "I'm offering you understanding. Humanity doesn't want war. We want truth. You've ruled this galaxy for thousands of years with laws that no one questions. But today we ask questions." He stepped closer to the center light. The air around him shimmered as a holographic interface came to life, projecting vast streams of data above the chamber. The hologram showed a planetary system far from the galactic core, a world scorched and barren. "This was Astron 4, Rains said. "A world you labeled as unrecoverable after a mining accident. You left it to die." The delegates shifted uneasily. Rains changed the projection. The same world appeared again, now green with forests and cities. 2 years ago, human engineers rebuilt its atmosphere, restored its oceans, and returned its people home. You didn't notice because we didn't ask permission. The Arbiter glared down. That world was under sanction. Your interference was a violation of law. Rains turned his head slowly, his eyes sharp. Then your laws are broken. Gasps rippled through the chamber. A heavy tension filled the air. The Arbiter pounded his staff. You come here flaunting defiance and call it righteousness. You show us one world, but you ignore the millions we protect. Rains looked directly at him. Protection? Or control? You protect those who obey, and you abandon those who refuse to pay tribute. You enslave them through policy, not weapons, the alien representatives murmured, some nodding in silent agreement, others glaring at the human for his boldness. Rains continued, his tone steady. For decades, Earth stayed silent. We watched. We learned how this council works, how votes are traded for power, how systems are starved until they surrender their autonomy. You call it order. We call it tyranny disguised as peace. A deep rumble of anger spread through the council. The arbiter leaned forward. You claim moral superiority, yet you arrive here with fleets of warships. Do you not see your own hypocrisy? Rains lifted his wrist. The hologram changed again. This time, it showed a massive asteroid drifting toward a populated planet. The council's own defense reports appeared beside it, marked non-intervention. This asteroid, Rains said, was 3 days away from destroying a colony under your jurisdiction. Your council voted to delay response until next rotation because the planet had no political significance. So we acted. The hologram zoomed in to show a human fleet intercepting the asteroid. A single human vessel fired a pulse of light. No explosion, no debris. The asteroid dissolved into harmless dust. The planet survived, Rains said. Millions lived. No vote was needed. A stunned silence filled the chamber. Even the arbiter seemed speechless for a moment. What kind of weapon was that? He finally asked. Rains smiled faintly. Not a weapon. A demonstration. The hologram expanded again, revealing the process. The human ships had created a field that bent gravity itself, tearing apart the asteroid with precision so fine that not a single fragment reached the atmosphere. The alien scientists in the audience whispered to one another in shock. The energy readings were beyond comprehension. Humanity had achieved control over gravity, a technology the Council had declared impossible. The Arbiter's voice trembled slightly. That power could destroy worlds, Rains nodded. It could, but it hasn't. That's the difference between us. The tension in the room deepened. Rains stepped forward again. We're not here to conquer. We're here to remind you that peace built on fear isn't peace at all. You've kept your authority for too long by silencing progress. You called Earth primitive, but we have learned faster than you could imagine. The Arbiter's tone grew colder. Then what do you want, human? What does Earth seek from this council? Rains looked up at the holographic ceiling where the stars shimmered. We want change. We want every species to have a voice, not just the oldest, not just the strongest. We want transparency. No more secret votes. No more abandoned worlds. No more dying colonies ignored because they have nothing to offer. The chamber exploded with noise. Some shouted in agreement. Others screamed betrayal. The idea was impossible to them, a galaxy without hierarchy. Rains waited until the noise faded. You think this council is unbreakable, but the cracks are already showing. We're not here to destroy you. We're here to make you see that the era of control is over. Suddenly, one of the monitors above the chamber flashed red. A council security officer shouted, "Unauthorized energy buildup detected around the human fleet." The delegates turned to the sky. Through the transparent dome, they saw the black warships begin to glow faintly blue. The Arbiter stood. They're charging weapons. Rains raised his voice calmly. No, watch. The fleet shifted formation again, aligning into a perfect ring around the capital world. Each ship released a pulse of light that connected in space, forming a vast, shimmering field that enveloped the planet. The crowd gasped as the data streamed in. No damage, no heat, no radiation. Instead, every weapon system on the planet had gone offline. Every defense cannon, every orbital mine, every drone, all disabled instantly. Rains looked toward the Arbiter. We could have attacked. Instead, we disarmed. We could have destroyed. Instead, we demonstrated. The Arbiter's voice was low and tight. You mean to show us that you can render us helpless? Rains shook his head. No, to show you that we won't. The silence that followed felt heavier than before. Every delegate understood the message. Humanity had achieved dominance not by destruction, but by restraint. Rains continued, his voice almost gentle. This is what you've never understood about us. You feared our violence, but it was never our strength. Our true strength is control, of our power, of our purpose, of our will. We don't seek war, but if war finds us, we end it quickly. The hologram flickered again, displaying live data from across the galaxy. Human colonies were shown assisting alien worlds, sharing technology, rebuilding economies. Rains looked around the room. You see, the galaxy has already started to change. We didn't need your approval. We just needed time. Now we're offering a choice, stand with us or stay behind. The Arbiter's face darkened. "You are playing a dangerous game, Admiral. Power like yours invites fear, and fear invites war." "Then let them fear," Rain said, "because fear can make them listen." For a long moment, the two leaders stared at each other, the weight of centuries pressing between them. Then Rain stepped back into the beam of light that had brought him there. "You wanted proof of our power. You have it. The next move is yours." He vanished. The council chamber erupted once more in shouting and panic. But outside, in the dark silence of space, Earth's fleet held its position, motionless, disciplined and waiting. Across the galaxy, millions of eyes turned toward the glowing formation above the capital world and whispered the same thought. Humanity had returned, and they were not just another species anymore. They were something new, something the galaxy had never seen before. The chamber of the Galactic Council was vast beyond imagination. Towering columns of silver light held the structure aloft, and the domed ceiling shimmered like the heart of a dying star. In the center, beneath a single ray of pale light, stood the delegation from Earth. Their uniforms were simple, no glowing armor, no jeweled insignias, only a patch of blue and white that represented their world. But the silence that greeted them carried the weight of millennia. At the far end of the chamber sat the High Circle, 12 of the most powerful beings in the galaxy, each representing 1,000 worlds. They stared down at the humans as if inspecting a long-forgotten myth that had somehow come to life. For centuries, the Council had believed humanity was extinct, wiped out during the old wars. Now, suddenly, here they were, standing alive and unbowed before the highest seat of interstellar power. The High Arbiter leaned forward, his voice deep and resonant. "You stand before the Grand Council of the Unified Systems. State your purpose, children of Earth." The human envoy, Ambassador Cale Donovan, stepped forward. His voice was calm, though the pulse in his throat betrayed the tension. "We come not as children, Arbiter. We come as equals." A murmur swept through the gathered representatives. Thousands of alien forms in their tears of light, their whispers echoing like wind through stone. The Arbiter's many eyes narrowed. "Equals? Humanity was once bound to this council's laws. When your kind vanished, we wrote you off as legend. You dare claim equality after your absence?" Cale met his gaze without fear. "We dare because we survived, because we rebuilt what was lost while your empires rotted behind their own walls of order." The words struck like a spark in a room filled with gas. Some of the alien delegates hissed in outrage, others watched with curiosity. The council had seen rebellions before, but never defiance spoken so quietly, so deliberately. The Arbiter raised a hand, and the chamber dimmed. "You have returned to our galaxy without permission, interfered with council operations and established colonies on restricted worlds. You will answer for these crimes." Kyle nodded slightly. "We will. But first, you will answer for yours." He lifted a small device from the table before him, pressing a sequence on its surface. A projection burst to life above the council floor. Images of shattered planets, burned atmospheres, starving colonies abandoned by the council after failed votes. Each image came with the seal of the Galactic Council itself, signed and archived as non-intervention zones. "This is your justice," Cale said. "Worlds left to die because they offered no political advantage. Civilizations extinguished because they couldn't pay your tribute. You claim to preserve peace, but your peace is built on silence and fear." The room erupted. The delegates' voices filled the air, overlapping in dozens of languages. The Arbiter struck the platform with his staff, sending a deep vibration through the chamber until silence returned. "Enough! You accuse us of crimes with fragments of data stolen from our archives. You think this gives you moral authority?" Cale's gaze hardened. "Not authority, truth. And you will find it harder to silence truth than you think." The Arbiter leaned forward, his voice almost a growl. "You speak as if you hold power here, human. This council decides who governs and who falls. You forget where you stand." Cale smiled faintly. "Oh, we haven't forgotten. We just remember differently." Before the Arbiter could respond, the chamber lights flickered. A holographic image appeared in the air above Kale, a live transmission from orbit. It showed Earth's fleet hovering beyond the station's moon, each ship aligned with surgical precision. There were hundreds, sleek black vessels that moved without sound or light. The Arbiter's voice dropped into disbelief. "You dare bring warships to the capital of the galaxy?" Kale's expression remained calm. "They are not here for war. They are here for witnesses." "Witnesses to what?" the Arbiter demanded. Kale pressed another control, and the hologram shifted. Now it showed the same fleet extending its energy field around the Council's homeworld. No weapons activated, no threat displayed. Instead, a soft blue glow enveloped the planet, forming a vast protective barrier. The Council's defense systems tried to scan it, but every attempt failed. The energy signature was unknown beyond any database. "This," Kale said, "is human science. It does not destroy, it shields. It does not enslave. It frees. You've ruled by fear of annihilation. We bring the opposite, protection without demand." A murmur of confusion and awe spread through the chamber. Some of the council members stared at the projection in disbelief. Others leaned forward, fascinated. Kale stepped closer to the Arbiter. "We did not come to kneel. We came to offer something different. Cooperation without submission. Partnership without chains. If you refuse, we walk away. And your people will know what you refused." The Arbiter's voice shook with restrained fury. "You think your technology grants you the right to dictate to us?" Kale's reply was quiet. "No, but your history does." The chamber was silent again. Even the distant hum of the power cores seemed to fade. Kale let the silence linger, then spoke softly. "You've grown comfortable in your power. You've forgotten what it means to fight for something beyond your own comfort. We haven't. Every inch of Earth was rebuilt from dust and fire. Every city we have was raised by hands that refused to surrender. That is what humanity brings, not dominance but resolve." The Arbiter looked around at the gathering. The other delegates were no longer unified. Some whispered among themselves. The cracks in the Council's control were visible now, widening with every word the human spoke. Kale continued, "We came here knowing you might reject us. We came knowing you might try to destroy us. But understand this, if you strike us down, you will show every world under your rule that even legends can bleed, and that will be enough to end your empire." The Arbiter's composure finally broke. "You are a fool, human. You underestimate what stands before you." Kale looked directly into his eyes. "And you underestimate what stands behind me." The chamber's light flared again. Every screen across the council walls activated simultaneously, showing live transmissions from dozens of worlds, alien worlds, all displaying the same symbol, a blue-white emblem of a planet surrounded by light. Humanity's message had already spread. The broadcast wasn't confined to the chamber. It had gone across the galaxy. The Arbiter realized too late that the humans hadn't come to negotiate. They had come to expose. Kale spoke over the rising noise. "We will no longer be subjects of your law. From this moment, Earth stands free. Any world that wishes to join us may do so without fear of retribution. The age of silent obedience is over." The council erupted in chaos. Some demanded Kale's arrest. Others called for an emergency session. But before any action could be taken, the humans vanished in a shimmer of light, their transport beam pulling them from the floor in an instant. Outside, the fleet began to move, not toward the planet, but away from it, forming a single luminous corridor through space. Their message had already taken root. Across the galaxy, oppressed systems and forgotten colonies were rising, their communications networks pulsing with the same human signal. On the Council homeworld, the Arbiter stood alone in the silent chamber, staring at the fading hologram of Earth's fleet. His aides whispered to him that the broadcast couldn't be stopped, that the human message had reached every known sector. For the first time in centuries, the Galactic Council faced something it could not silence, a simple truth wrapped in defiance. Humanity had returned, not as conquerors but as a spark, And that spark was spreading faster than the council could contain. In the dark void beyond the council's stars, Kale watched from his flagship as the transmission rippled outward. "They thought we were lost," he said quietly. "Let them see what survival looks like." Behind him, the stars reflected against the hull of Earth's fleet, thousands of lights burning bright in the endless night. And for the first time, in 1,000 years, the galaxy felt small compared to the will of humankind. The chamber was filled with a strange quiet, the kind that came only after chaos. The Galactic Council had reconvened, though no one knew why. The lights burned low, casting long shadows across the curved floor. Delegates from 1,000 worlds sat uneasily in their floating seats, whispering among themselves. Every voice carried the same fear. The humans had changed everything. A shimmering light appeared at the center of the hall, expanding into a human form. Ambassador Cale Donovan stood there once more, his presence commanding the attention of every being present. The silence deepened. The last time he had spoken, the galaxy had trembled. The High Arbiter's voice broke the stillness. "You dare return after what you've done?" Cale's expression was unreadable. "You summoned this session, Arbiter." "We only answered the call." Gasps rippled through the chamber. The humans had returned to the council by invitation. The Arbiter's hands trembled slightly on his staff, though he tried to hide it. "We called you here to answer for your interference in the sovereignty of the council. Entire worlds have broken away from our control because of your words." Cale looked up at the towering council tiers. "You call it interference. They call it choice." The chamber screens flickered again. Footage rolled of alien colonies, species once bound by the council's decrees, now rebuilding under the protection of human fleets. There were no weapons in those videos. Only trade ships, relief transports, and orbital stations with the mark of Earth on their hulls. "Your people are stirring rebellion across our space," the Arbiter growled. Cale replied quietly, "Your space? Or the space you claimed from others who couldn't fight back?" The words hung in the air like a blade. Every delegate in the room shifted. Some avoided looking at one another. Others watched Cale with open admiration. The Arbiter slammed his staff down. "Enough, the council will not be mocked by an upstart species." Cale nodded slowly. "Then perhaps it's time the council decides, are we upstarts or are we equals?" The question cut deep. The chamber's lights dimmed as the council's main systems prepared for a recorded session. Every word would now be archived forever. Cale walked to the center platform, his voice calm but edged with fire. "When humanity disappeared, you called us extinct. You wrote legends about us, dangerous, primitive, violent. But those legends left out one thing. The reason we survived was not violence. It was unity. When the old wars consumed our home, we didn't collapse, we rebuilt. And while you debated laws that suffocated your people, we turned survival into progress." He paused, scanning the crowd. "You built peace through fear. We built strength through struggle." One of the alien delegates rose from the third row, a tall, silver-skinned being with wide, luminous eyes. "You claim to bring peace, but you arm yourself with fleets. You surround worlds with power. Is that not fear?" Cale turned to face him. "Our fleets protect those who have no voice here. We arm ourselves not to rule, but to ensure no one rules us again." The room buzzed with murmurs. Even the Arbiter looked uneasy. "You speak as if your ideals are noble, but your methods are force." "You threaten balance." Kyle looked straight at him. "Balance built on silence is not peace, it's a cage." The holographic displays shifted again. They now showed a network, humans working side by side with alien engineers, scientists, and diplomats. New space stations, trade corridors, and education hubs connecting species that had never interacted before. Every image carried the mark of cooperation. Cale spoke softly. "You see, the galaxy does not need your fear to hold it together. It only needed hope." For a long moment, no one spoke. The council's walls seemed to pulse faintly with power, the ancient systems humming under the tension. Then a voice from the upper tier, one of the elder delegates, spoke. "Ambassador Cale, what is it you seek? Do you wish to destroy the council?" Cale shook his head. "No, we don't want your throne. We want your transparency. The galaxy deserves to see the truth behind every vote, every law, every decision. Open the archives. Show the worlds how their futures are decided." The Arbiter rose sharply. "Impossible. That information is restricted by law." Cale met his glare. "Then your laws are chains. Without warning, Kyle raised his hand. The projection above him shifted once more, but this time it wasn't controlled by his device. It was controlled from outside the council. The holograms now showed live feeds from the council's own vaults, classified recordings of centuries of decisions, secret deals, hidden wars. Every delegate froze. The entire chamber was watching the truth unravel. Kale's voice was quiet but carried across the hall. You locked away history to protect your power. Now your people will see what you hid. The Arbiter shouted. You've committed a crime against the Council. Kale looked up calmly. And you've committed crimes against the galaxy. The Council floor shook as the security fields activated. The human envoy was surrounded by guards, but Kale didn't move. He stood firm, his voice steady even as weapons glowed around him. You can silence me. You can imprison every human diplomat. But the truth is already out. Every system connected to the Council's network is receiving this transmission. The Arbiter's composure broke completely. You have doomed us all. Kale's eyes narrowed. No, I've freed them. The guards hesitated. Around the chamber, alien delegates were already accessing their own comlinks, confirming the data. The Council's corruption was no longer a secret. Entire alliances were fracturing in real time. Kale continued speaking, his tone unwavering. Humanity ignored your summons for decades because we wanted to see who you were when no one was watching. Now everyone is watching. You cannot hide behind your walls anymore. The Arbiter sank into his chair, his voice trembling. And what happens now, human? Chaos? War? Kyle stepped closer to the platform's edge. Maybe for a time. Change always brings fear. But the difference is that now the people will choose their own path. You taught them obedience. We taught them courage. The chamber doors burst open. Delegates began leaving their seats, rushing to their ships, calling their homeworlds. The Galactic Council, the most stable government in recorded history, was collapsing in a single session. Kale looked to the side of the chamber where a young human officer waited. She whispered, "They're ready, sir." He nodded. Then it's time. A moment later, the projection above the chamber changed one last time. The human fleet appeared, not in orbit of the Council world, but across dozens of star systems. Each fleet was protecting newly independent planets, ensuring no retaliation would follow. Kale turned to the Arbiter one final time. This is not conquest. It's correction. The galaxy will learn to lead itself again. The Arbiter could only stare as Kale and his team shimmered and vanished. Outside, the Council's grand city stretched across the horizon, a maze of towers and energy fields. But above it, for the first time in memory, the sky was filled with movement. Alien ships leaving, human vessels escorting them to safety. The Council's great order was dissolving, but in its place something new was forming. Kale stood aboard his flagship, looking down at the glowing planet below. We didn't come here to rule, he said quietly. We came to remind them that power without purpose is just noise. His communications officer turned. Sir, multiple worlds are requesting alliances under Earth's network. They want to join the Accord. Kyle nodded slowly. Then the future begins now. Behind him, through the wide observation window, the fleet began to shift formation. Thousands of ships, human and alien alike, moved together, creating the largest coalition ever seen in the stars. And far below, on the surface of the Council's shattered capital, the once untouchable government crumbled in silence. Humanity had not destroyed the Galactic Council with weapons or invasion. They had ended it with truth, strategy, and unity, the very things the galaxy once believed them incapable of. As Kale's fleet moved into the dark, the stars reflected across their hulls like a trail of fire. The galaxy would remember this day not as the fall of order, but as the day humanity returned and taught the universe that legends do not fade. They rise,